entertain!
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson,
Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian.
Enjoy.
Welcome to another episode of the Red Moon Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host, Sean Sebastian. Always got to be an interesting intro for Mr. Keith Cheatham there.
You don't know me.
I don't?
You're not my grandfather.
No, I'm not.
You're just
You know,
a woman.
What I love, though, is right before our intro,
Yeah.
we had a very good, already, lively discussion happening.
I know.
It's it's almost like, should I just start cutting the mics up early or something during the...
No,
I can't do that.
You can't do that.
It's just like, maybe eventually we'll kind of do like a...
Killing me, Smalls. You're killing me.
Yes. Maybe eventually we'll I don't know, do a behind the scenes type thing where you can just kind of tune in before the start of the show. Wow, I don't know, Keith. That'll just make everybody sick.
Make them sick.
You do that again?
I'll do it.
Wow! Oh my gosh! See, I love being able to control it. It's fantastic.
Control yourself.
But we were already talking about the Snyder Cut.
Snyder
People
Cut.
petitioning for the Snyder Cut. It's like,
Joker,
come on, give it up.
Jared Leto.
Yes. Are you kidding me? I mean, seriously, it's awful.
Awful.
So I don't know why people are still trying. I mean, Justice League is 2 years old now?
Yeah.
And we've already had a complete revamp of the entire DC. I mean,
doing
DC's
so much
on
better.
the up and up.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got a great review.
We
coming
do.
up
We
here
do have a
soon.
great review. And it's crazy, like all this stuff going on that people won't let go of. But looking to holding on to the past. I think sometimes the past informs the future, and
Very true.
therefore that's why this month of October I've been heavily in the stint of the Universal Monster movie reviews. So we do
yes.
have another one of those coming up.
And we just
Looking
had
forward to
Frankenstein last week.
We had Frankenstein last week.
But now this week we've got a
This
double
week's-
review. for it.
yeah, 2 reviews. One being the huge release of Joker, which, of course, came with all kinds of controversy and concern, and people worried about what that might create. And we'll talk about that a little bit.
But now
too.
the biggest opening in October ever.
Yes, and for good reason. But we'll get to that review too. And then this week for the Halloween review, I'm doing 1941's The Wolfman.
Ooh. How?
God.
You gotta love it.
That's terrible.
So should we just dive right into that, Keith?
Yes.
All right, well then let's get to
Let's
the
do it
review.
to it, Lars. Week 2 of October and another Universal Monster movie to review. With this week seeing the release of Joker, I thought it would be fitting to examine a monster film that highlights the monster inside us all. The one we try to hide and escape from, but never can, because it's always lurking beneath our skin, waiting for a full moon to arise. I speak of Universal's 1941 classic, The Wolfman. Starring Lon Chaney Jr. as Larry Talbot, the man doomed to become the Wolfman, after his brother has passed away, Larry returns to Wales to reconcile with his father, Sir John Talbot, played by Claude Rains. Larry soon becomes romantically involved with a lady named Gwen, played by Evelyn Ankers. Gwen runs a local antique shop where Larry purchases a walking stick with a silver wolf head as the handle. When Gwen and her friend Jenny are attacked by a wolf, Larry rescues them by killing the beast with a silver wolf cane, but not before being bitten. Larry begins to change into the Wolfman at night, unable to control his murderous rampages. The Wolfman is a tragic tale that, like Frankenstein and many of the Universal Monster movies, laid fundamental groundwork for horror films in the future. Being a commentary on the beast within, and not recognizing the monster who could live right next door, the Wolfman, through use of its creature, taps into primal fears much as its predecessors. Well acted, with the uneasy atmosphere many Universal Monster movies had, The Wolfman isn't the first werewolf movie made by Universal, but it is the one that would define every future werewolf film to come. The only shortcoming of this film, compared to its brethren, may be that it doesn't hold up quite as well, not because of its acting, themes, story, or special effects, but more so because of its writing and pace. The acting and makeup is top-notch for its period, and while slightly dated, The Wolfman and its themes are as relevant as ever. But its characters aren't as mesmerizing or as compelling as that of Frankenstein, Dracula, and the plethora of other monster films. The Wolfman is scary, but slow, and once you've seen it, it's not as easily rewatchable as the others, but still a staple of horror that's earned its place in history. I give The Wolfman 3 out of 4 stars. 3 out of 4 stars compared to Frankenstein, which I gave 4
out
of 4 stars. The Wolfman, don't get me wrong, it's really good. Of course, it's 10 years after Universal's already started this whole monster universe plethora of films. You had Frankenstein and Dracula both come out in 1931.
Yeah.
Wolfman didn't come out until 1941. And it's not the first werewolf movie Universal Pictures tried to make. They made one years before, I think in 1932, I might have the year wrong, called Werewolf in London. Not an American werewolf in London.
I was going to say, talk about another great We've reviewed that one, but...
and I mean, with a lot of the same people working on the film, in fact, the original werewolf design for Werewolf in London, which got scrapped, is what they used in The Wolfman, which is a superior design, in my opinion. I just smacked the mic. It's like just
Smack the
But
mic.
like I said, it focused like with the whole werewolf, the whole idea of the werewolf being that you change into it, and of course this movie didn't start the full moon mythology. It actually came with the second.
Actually, I did have a question because you mentioned in there about him getting the silver cane.
Yes.
Does it start the whole silver
kills
a
a wolf? Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
I was like, all right, that's interesting.
well, I mean, that's always kind of been
the
a
mythos,
mythos anyways. But yeah, that's the first time you kind of see that in cinema history. And then, of course, the full moon, changing it, the full moon came with the sequel. In this, there was like this kind of like poem or song that like the locals sang about, during the autumn moon when wolfbane's in bloom, you change, and that's all that's
Well,
really
that rhymes.
mentioned.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's good stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when you kind of change. And then, of course, they kind of make it the full moon in sequels and in subsequent werewolf movies. But again, what makes this movie such a fundamental link in horror film history is the fact that it is the basic fear of basically the monster inside of you. I mean, you don't know you hope you know your neighbor, but you don't know in the middle of the night if your neighbor is secretly a mass murderer or a rapist. You don't know.
Yeah,
and it's kind of the idea behind a werewolf.
Have to ask Brian about that.
Dang.
Yeah.
I don't
That's
know.
Brian.
really making me think. now.
Maybe that's the reason why he's been inviting us over.
But that's the scary part is
fattening us up.
you don't know who the
God.
Wolfman is. You don't know who's changing into the wolf at night. It's not until the end of the movie. Spoilers alert. It did come out in 1941 though.
Yeah.
When they kill the wolf and he changes back into Larry, and it's Larry's father. Or just say
Yeah.
Larry's.
It's always Larry.
Larry, why you
But-
out doing this, man?
And Lon Chaney's character,
Gosh.
but when his father and his romantic interest discover that it's him, that they're surprised, they didn't know.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a tragedy, but at the same time, it's like you don't know the beast within anybody really. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of where that fundamental fear in that film comes from that resonates throughout horror history. And my only issue with it, why I didn't quite rank it as high as Frankenstein or Dracula or some of the others, which I haven't gotten to yet, is just for the fact that it's a solid movie, but once you've seen it, like I said, the character development and interactions isn't as compelling to me as many of the others. Like, they're not as well written as
Which is
Frankenstein.
odd considering this came 10 years after
yeah.
those others. I mean, you would
but
think they would have kind of honed in on
10
that
years
skill.
in, that they're starting to embrace kind of the more campy side of it. And while this movie was still serious, like Frankenstein and Dracula,
It had that camp.
yeah, and it just wasn't it's good. Don't get me wrong, it's good, but it's just not one that I could sit down and just watch and be enamored by start to finish the way Frankenstein is.
Yeah.
It just doesn't have that atmosphere that keeps you creeped out and on the edge of your seat. It is creepy, but it just doesn't, I feel hold up as well as Frankenstein.
But definitely worth a watch.
No, absolutely. It's still one of the top universe. I mean, that's why it's remembered as being, even though it's not the first werewolf movie Universal made, it's remembered as their best.
I was going to say, it was the definitive one that kind of kickstarted
and for good reason.
The Wolfman mythos
So they
on films.
back then they put more effort and focus on the costume.
I think
and the makeup
special
and all
effects
of that,
and stuff went more into
kind of
Wolfman.
lacked on the story a little bit.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's interesting, worth a watch. You should check it out.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But should we just kind of? I mean, that was our October Halloween review, but I think everybody's been kind of waiting for
Well, honestly,
our biggest.
I think the review we're about to get into, the movie we're about to get to, is scarier to me just because
Very
it's,
true.
it's relatable. It's feels real, and to me, it's when you watch Joker, it's you could see how someone could slip into this madness and anarchy, and that is a terrifying thought.
Like you say at the beginning of your review, without giving too much away, It's very much the type of movie that it's kind of fitting that it does release in the month of Halloween.
There's reason
Oh, yeah.
I think people were worried about it inciting violence.
Absolutely.
But we'll get into that too, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get into all of that. So here is our review, finally, of The Joker. Or just Joker.
Yeah. You big dummy. Despite not being a horror film, it is still fitting that DC's latest major release, Joker, came out in October. Steeped in controversy and concerns that the film could incite violence, the movie perfectly showcased what real-life horrors can be, and is a mirror to the senseless violence that seems to have become so frequent in the present. Brutal in its depiction of violence, and brutally honest in its commentary on society, personal responsibility, and the treatment of the mentally unstable, Joker provides plenty of fuel for those fearing its ability to incite real-life dangers, but it also sheds light on real issues worth discussing more. Starring Joaquin Phoenix as Arthur Fleck, a down-on-his-luck aspiring comedian who makes ends meet as a clown for hire, Arthur lives with his elderly mother, proud to be the man of the house. He suffers from a mental disorder that causes him to laugh uncontrollably, even in moments of fear or anguish. Arthur regularly goes to therapy, and the film from the outset depicts Arthur and his mother as suffering from mental handicaps. The movie follows Arthur as he is failed by society, losing funding to the social services he relied on for therapy. Constantly rejected, outcast, and abused, Arthur soon begins a descent into madness that will ultimately transform him into the Joker. Directed by Todd Phillips, famous for his comedies such as Road Trip, Old School, and the Hangover trilogy, Joker is not a film for the faint of heart. Earning its R rating with blunt and graphic violence, while Logan and Deadpool introduced us to R-rated comic fare, Joker raises the stakes with grit and realism. Diving deep into Arthur's psyche, not to justify his turn, but to make sense of how an ordinary person can be driven to evil. The movie works on multiple levels. As an origin to Joker, it's compelling, offers plenty of connections to larger Batman mythos, and Easter eggs galore. Likewise, the film stands on its own 2 feet. With Phillips creating Joker as a twisted homage to Martin Scorsese, who helped produce the film, it also offers up plenty of Easter eggs alluding to Scorsese's works as well. Joker works so well not because it's a comic book film, but because it doesn't feel like one at all. Yes, the references exist, but take away the Gotham setting and the Waynes, and Joker could have been about any man's struggle with mental illness and how he loses the battle. All of this is sold on the strength of Phoenix's performance. While I'm not willing to raise him up above the performance of Heath Ledger, I can say Phoenix at least matches it. While they are 2 very different interpretations, they also feel as if one could easily become the other. Phoenix, as Arthur Fleck, begins sympathetic but becomes someone terrifying. Someone you feel sorry for at first but fear and lose all sympathy for by film's end. You believe Phoenix when he portrays a person in pain crying out for help, and you believe him as he becomes a monster. It's an impeccable performance. Ultimately, it's the film's message that will become divisive and controversial, much more so than the violence people fear it may incite. As the film shows how society is quick to blame anyone and everyone for their problems instead of taking responsibility for one's actions, and how we bury the problem of how to deal with those who need help rather than face that what we often create are the monsters we fear. I give Joker 4 out of 4 stars.
All right, 4 out of 4 stars. That's like one of the.
That's like the third movie.
third
Wait.
movie
Is
we've done.
this like? I mean,
It's like
we
the
just had a
third.
huge argument about this last week.
That's
It's
why
like
we're
the third
joking
time
about it.
we've ever given a movie.
Never giving 4-star
Yeah.
reviews, and yet here we
There
go.
was like 20 of them that we.
And we just followed up last week.
I'm actually. I'm surprised you gave it 4.
Oh, really?
I say 3.5.
Okay.
But I kind of agree with your 4. But just I don't know. I have a couple of minor gripes that we can get into.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you told me 4 out of 4, I was kind of like, wow, that's
I gave it 4.
it's
I
yeah.
gave it 4.
I gave it 4 stars.
Yeah. For Keith to give a movie 4 stars,
it really impressed me.
It must have.
Yeah.
It,
well, let's go. We do this normally. Let's go around the table, and since we
Well,
all
we already
saw
know
it,
ours.
We already gave ours. So.
so
4,
you-
3.5.
Yeah, and I would agree with Sean. I give it 3.5.
3.5.
Yeah.
But the weird thing is when I heard that you gave it 4, I kind of I understand why you lean in that direction, and I'm not going to argue against it at all.
Yeah.
Even the gripes that I have, I'm absolutely applauding your 4-star
I
review.
just felt the gripes that I had were minor enough that they didn't detract
from the
for
film
me,
as a whole.
It just really impressed. I guess just how brutal and graphic it was really impressed me, especially with like telling the story of the Joker, who is a at times in the comics can be a very brutal and graphic character.
Yep.
And that's not anything that you've really seen on screen a whole lot. The closest you got to it was definitely Heath Ledger's Joker. They showed some of his violence, but even then with the PG-13 setting and it being a little bit more of a traditional take on Batman and Joker only in a realistic world, as opposed to this film, which Todd Phillips wanted to be kind of an homage to Martin Scorsese. He wanted it to have that feel of like Taxi Driver and some of his other films, which it does definitely, I think. And it was supposed to be darker, but still real. It wasn't the brooding and moody type of dark and gritty that Zack Snyder did. It was a realistic,
Thank God.
dark. Yeah, it was a realistic dark film. And his slip into madness that's what I liked, was the fact that it felt so real. He was this average guy who suffered from mental illness that couldn't get the help he needed. Society kind of like ignored him or let him down because, they're making so many cuts on like the social health care, and you see this fight of like the poor versus the rich, and it mimicked a lot of what we see today, but in a way that I don't even think some of the filmmakers were even thinking, because they highlighted points about how personal responsibility, we're all responsible for our own actions.
Yeah.
And they highlighted just so many points that I think even they might be kind of surprised at. And there's many critics.
I was going to say, I think we see that in the critical review score.
Yeah.
I've read so many
and
reviews
how it's
that
dropped over time.
I laughed at. So many reviews I laughed at because they're like, Todd Phillips doesn't understand the impact of this and this, or like he say like he doesn't understand that the problem lies here, and it's like, no, you don't understand that what he highlighted was the truth, and you all are so against the fact that it could be
Just got blinders
a mentally ill person that needed help that fell through the cracks like Arthur did, that becomes the next huge villain, and it's like they still refuse to see it, and that's what I think is funny.
I read one of the critic reviews was about the gun violence, and it even, I mean, they used their review as a soapbox for a political statement about gun control, and they were pointing out that the violence that he distributes on other people didn't happen until he gets a gun, and that the gun was what drove him to do it. I'm like, no, he was freaking insane.
Yeah.
I mean, he was
the gun was merely a catalyst from something that had already begun. He was
oh,
given
yes,
the gun,
definitely,
in
a deep-rooted
person
issue
who should not
Yeah.
have been
Well,
given the gun.
and the
Right.
funny thing is, they can argue all I want that he couldn't have killed him until he got the gun, but he got the gun through illegal means. So it's not like
That's true,
you
but
need
they don't,
more
well, they don't
gun.
see
yeah,
that.
I know,
But
but
it's
it's
But again,
funny.
for their
It's still
argument to make any kind of a case,
It's
they
not like
would
he
have
went
to
into
at
a
least
store
mention-
and intentionally said, I'm going to buy a gun and shoot people. He was illegally given a gun,
Right.
and he used it at first in self-defense. But after the self-defense was over, he snapped and continued to use it.
to use it. Yeah.
And well, not only that, but one thing I loved that I feel like the critics missed as well is it was almost as if, because of the darker tone of the film, it's like, and I don't understand this touchy-feely culture that we have now, where it's like taboo. So I mean, everybody wants to talk about being brave and coming out and telling their story, but yet at the same time, when we talk about things that are unsettling, like such as mental health,
Yeah.
And that's exactly
And
what
everybody
this-
runs away from it.
Yeah, everybody wants to run away and say no. Let's. I mean that this is very. They wanted to default to the violence being the reason why we shouldn't have or should be scared about releasing a film like this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, when were the days that we were praising artists for being artists?
Yeah.
And we were allowing them to actually spout whatever it is they wanted to spout, and being actually
stunning
open
and
to-
brave.
Yeah, exactly.
Telling their truth.
Well,
Yeah,
That's the one that
But
I
I
like.
think that's what's interesting is it's like if you don't tell the message that certain people in the upper elitists want to hear,
Yeah.
then
Oh, yeah.
you're going to be shut out.
Yeah.
And you're ultimately going to be alienated. And they're going. I mean, that's why I do give credit to Todd Phillips. I think he kind of brashly came out in defense, but again, it's his film.
Yeah.
And he just went through this incredible, and not only that, but him and Joaquin Phoenix
Oh, yeah.
went through this incredible journey of making this film, and to be tarnished just because these people who are criticizing it for the violence and not seeing it for the reason
Or
and
for the
true
message that
meaning.
it portrays.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what's self-defeating to me.
Exactly. Todd Phillips really impressed me just because this is the guy that made Old School and The Hangover, and now he's making Joker.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
it's like, where did that come from, man? Like that's just
It definitely
mind blowing.
Yep.
broadened his portfolio. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
But I give credit to them to no pun intended, sticking to their guns.
Oh wow.
Well, let him ask me. But I give credit to them for at
He
least.
didn't always use a gun. He had a pillow in one scene.
Yeah, and
that's
scissors
true.
killed one guy with a
Yeah,
pair of scissors.
true.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
anything can be a
Spared
weapon.
the midget, so
Well, there
See,
you
he
go.
was good at heart.
yeah.
Well, but he didn't do anything.
That
to
was
him.
another thing that
Yeah.
worried
So-
me that I loved, because at first I thought they were going to try to make him seem like this tragic hero that
Yeah.
was just misunderstood. But
They
they
do
didn't.
not.
They didn't. Like I mean, it starts off as a sympathetic character because he does fall through the cracks and snaps. But then by the end, that they plainly paint him as this character that, yeah, he may have been sympathetic in the beginning, but through his own actions, he became a villain.
Yeah,
He
they
was
tried
not
to at the beginning of the film. I really thought that they were going to make him into somewhat of a Robin Hood,
Yeah.
like where he is fighting for the poor man, completely against the rich, and he raises up basically an army of people to riot, and protest.
Anarchist, yeah.
Yeah, just anarchy. He creates all this chaos against the richer and elite people in Gotham. But one of the things that surprised me was towards the end of the film, you start to see the real character of, some of these rich people are jerks and buttholes or whatever, but they weren't evil,
Yeah.
and it clearly shows that, and it
Yeah.
shows that what he started was evil.
Yeah.
And that took the turn, like you said, it took the turn away from this tragic hero to, no, he is a diabolical villain
yeah.
that we're creating here. And I really enjoyed that, because I thought the same way. I was like, man, this is going to be a movie where they make the bad guy out to be
Yeah.
the hero, and everybody that's
No,
made
it
a
was
buck is the
definitely-
devil.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, that's
like
not the
the-
route that it went.
The movie doesn't paint Thomas Wayne in a good light at all. Which
No.
most depictions of Thomas and Martha Wayne are that they were
He's an honorable
philanthropists
man.
Right.
that were
Yeah.
honorable and trying to save
Yeah.
Gotham. And this turns him into like, I mean, he did the right thing, but only for political gain, and he was
Yeah.
kind of
Well,
a,
and
a
what
douche.
I love though
but-
is he kind of sets it up though in such a way that most of the film, and I don't want to talk about one of the smaller twists in the film,
Mhm.
but it's all through his perspective, through
Yes.
Joker's perspective.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so what I love is that you really don't know if a lot of his interactions are verbatim.
You don't know if
are
it's-
actually what happened.
Yeah.
And so based on his own perception of reality,
Yeah.
you kind of get a mixture of, okay, is this just what we're seeing through Joker's eyes to
Yeah.
justify his own actions?
Yeah, because I mean, in a way, the bathroom scene
Yes.
could have very well been that was the way he was interpreting things.
Right.
Yeah.
But in reality, it could have been something completely different. Even though they didn't show it, like you said, they do kind of throw out those moments where there's an alternate reality of what's going
They
on
throw out
here.
enough moments to
Yeah.
make you be like, okay, what exactly is
What's
the
going
truth?
on in
Yeah.
his mind
Right,
is
yeah.
up in the air. You
Right.
have no idea.
Yeah.
But
That's
then
what makes him
again,
the Joker.
I think they also sell it in such a great way of how. One thing I love about the film, truthfully, is the spiral out of control that it does take one who's already suffering with some kind of mental illness.
Oh, yeah,
But
yeah.
then through repeated, beating up on, bullying,
Mhm.
all of these moments where we have a chance as a society to take these under our wing, take these people under our wing, and actually,
Yeah.
do right by them and
Yeah.
try to, and I think that you see a little bit of that when he envisions being on the Murray Show.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's, in the audience and he pictures everybody kind of laughing, but, Murray calms him down. It's like,
Embracing
hey,
him, yeah.
exactly. And not only that, but I also love the message in the film of just what the absence of a father does
Yeah.
in a young man's life.
Yeah.
And how that also can take a toll in a horrible way.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately what you see is these continual instances of how he gets to the point of being the Joker.
Yeah.
And like you said, Keith, it's almost like he goes from self-defense to, actually wreaking havoc. But I
Yeah.
mean, it's after, even the social workers, when public funding gets cut, it's like, well, we're the
Yeah.
first thing to go because we're not important. Nobody cares.
Well, he
Yeah.
sees.
But then you see what happens
Yeah.
when you take something like that, where it is the very, I think, argument we've seen at the forefront of all the mass shootings and everything that has been taking place over the last several years,
Yeah.
where you see it's like, well, mental health, and this is exactly what happens.
glad you
Our
brought that up.
response to
Yeah.
it is no, it's not really that big a deal because we do that and we make it's not so much a big deal when we cut funding
because
and when we
one
don't
of the,
make it a
I was gonna
priority.
say, one of the biggest catalysts for him going from self-defense to, well, now I'm just going to get mine because everybody's crapped on me my whole life, so I'm going to pay it back tenfold, is the media coverage of the people he killed in self-defense starting out. Because you see that in real life, the media, anytime a tragedy happens, they spread it as far as they can. It's on every screen. They talk about every detail.
They're making money off of it.
They talk about the killer, and he sees that, and he sees people responding to it both negatively and positively. There's people that were saying, "Oh, well, they probably deserved it. Those rich folk, they got what they deserved," and he saw that and fed off that, and that's what bolstered him to be like, you know what? It doesn't matter what I'm doing because
maybe I'm not insane.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a very
if one person agrees with you, then it solidifies and justifies
what your
all
own
the actions that you've done. Yeah.
And I love that shot when they show, like, at the very end when the climax happens and every screen is showing what he's done, and I'm just like, that is exactly what happens today.
The truth, yeah.
Well, and exactly, but also the hysteria that's coming from all of this hubbub about this being a violent movie, and we should be careful. And, be careful. But I'm like,
the media,
you all are heightening the very.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why it popped up to number one.
Well,
at
that's
the
what I'm
box
saying.
office.
We were over here talking about it earlier tonight. It's just like if you're going to blast all of these ideas on TV, there's someone out there who's been thinking about committing a crime or a mass shooting or going into a theater during a movie and killing somebody, and you just reminded them, and you just gave them the notion or the idea that their face and their name is going to be on every TV in America if they do this.
That's what he wanted.
It's just like that's exactly.
He wanted to go on the Maury Show and be famous. Yeah.
That's right. It was his 15 minutes of fame, and originally he had planned on doing something completely different on the show.
Yep.
But then he ends up saying, "No, I'm going to embrace this instead of ending my trail here. I'm going to follow it as far as it'll go."
One line that I hope you all can remember it, because there's one line what he writes down in his journal, and it's not the one about I hope my life makes sense.
Oh yeah,
Not
makes
that
more
one.
sense, or my death makes more sense than my life.
Yeah.
But it's the one. Oh, gosh, I can't remember. It's and it was one of our producers at work. She brought it up to me and reminded me of it. But it was so well done, and he was talking about how everybody basically lives their life in such a way that it is like one big joke.
Yeah.
The emphasis of the line, I'm butchering it, but it's like everybody lives their life in such a way that it's like you're not showing your true self. You are hiding behind this facade. And so it was like that's the thing is I loved how in this movie you see glimpses of there is someone there who understands.
Yeah.
There's someone there who gets the deep, mental capacity at which he's capable of.
Yeah.
But then it's still so deeply buried behind all the scar tissue. And from being chained up to a radiator when he was a kid, and it's just like you hear his backstory and you're like, oh my gosh,
Man,
no
yeah,
wonder.
no wonder.
Yeah.
He's just
He's a product of his environment.
But
Exactly.
like Lads was pointing out to him, it's like you either take responsibility for the things that happen and change them, or and in his case, it's easier sometimes to not have to face your demons and to just embrace the madness and say, well, now I can just use this as an excuse to go on doing anything. Yeah.
What he feels right doing.
Yeah.
Because he does find joy in the violence at some point.
Yeah.
And at first it's fear, but then he finally is embracing this, like, this is what makes me feel alive.
Yeah. Well,
And-
especially with the culmination of I don't want to give it away, but the scene after the big climax where it's kind of this applause of, this thunderous applause by all of the people who would support
He's their
what he's
god.
done. Exactly. And so
The Clown Prince.
I will say though,
Clown Prince of Crime.
that I think too, some people will make this comparison between his Joker and Heath Ledger's Joker.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to happen.
Of course it is, because they're
Absolutely.
both iconic performances. And I like the way you spelled it out in your review, and I would agree that there really is no...
I can't say that he's better than Ledger.
but he's
I would
on
say,
par.
I would say Ledger's still my favorite,
Yeah.
and that's more so because The Dark Knight as a whole, that film, is just so great in the way it utilizes the Joker. But Joaquin Phoenix gives just as great a performance for what he's supposed to be.
I also want to underscore too that I think it's two drastically different
Oh, yeah.
types of or approaches on the Joker.
Yeah.
Right.
and which is not a bad thing.
No, that's-
and I really think the way this movie kind of ends is in a way where you could see
the
his Joker of Heath Ledger coming in next.
Yeah.
And it's like that's kind of what it is an origin story. So because of that, you see almost this in the midst of this is a Joker who's kind of going down that dark tunnel, but isn't really fully himself yet, or the character that you see him become later on.
And in the comics, there are no one defined backstory for the Joker. He has several, and even like in the comics, he says that he's driven so insane that even he doesn't remember what his real origin story is.
We were talking about that earlier because it's like in Heath Ledger's performance,
he gave a couple.
He gives all these different stories, different stories about how he got the scars and everything. And our friend Brad pointed out maybe he believed all of them. Yeah, maybe he doesn't even know which one that he believes and which ones that he's put stock in. So,
and I mean that's kind of the case in the comics, and there's so many different origin stories. That's why I do enjoy seeing someone else's new and fresh take because you can. With the Joker, it's not like Batman who has the set. His parents were murdered and then he becomes Batman. The Joker doesn't even remember who he was anymore.
My wife, when I got home the next morning, my wife was asking me like which. Did I think his was better than Heath? She's a Heath Ledger fan, and she was asking me that question, and I had to think about it for a second. But the way I put it to her was that I thought Heath Ledger played a better Joker with Batman.
Yeah,
yes,
but as a standalone,
oh no doubt,
I don't know that Heath Ledger would have pulled it off the way Phoenix did as a standalone character. Heath Ledger's Joker performance fed off of the fact that he had an arch nemesis, and that he had a Batman to fight. Joaquin Phoenix's does not have that Batman to fight.
Right.
He doesn't have any opposition other than the police and himself.
Yeah.
So I thought he did a better performance as the standalone. I wish Heath Ledger would have been around long enough to show us something like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
But and maybe based on the popularity of this film and the amount of money it's making and buzz that it's generating, we might see Joaquin Phoenix reprise it again.
He's been approached, and the word on the street at first was kind of Joaquin was like, no, I'm done. Yeah. Which, I mean, because we know for sure that based on interviews with him and, of course, even Heath Ledger leading up to his tragic death, the toll of this character that this character takes on people. And even my dad was kind of like, gosh, you're just actors. Why can't y'all just, get out there, do your job? And I'm like, okay, here's the thing. I mostly do say that, especially when I go on my rants about
I do think
method
actors gets a bit extreme.
But I will say, for something this deranged, for something that you have to delve deep.
You have to put your mind into the psychopath. Yeah.
Right. I can only imagine that the mind crazed journey you go on to the point where you're going to be driven mad. Yeah. So we know that with these two actors, it takes a toll on you. But the fact is Joaquin said he is very much willing to come back for this role.
They play. I hope so. It was actually really embarrassing, and Jimmy Kimmel got a lot of flack for it after the fact. But there was a behind-the-scenes footage where Joaquin Phoenix kind of snaps on, I think, one of the cameramen. Yeah, and I mean it's not like as bad as Christian Bale's Terminator ran. It wasn't nowhere, but like apparently this cameraman had made fun of Joaquin Phoenix and called him Cher, and he snaps on him and he's like, you know what? And he's like, that's even a stupid insult. Cher's got this many awards. He's like, that's effing dumb. You're dumb. But he kind of just snaps and is mad because he's trying to get into this role, and he walks offset. Yeah. So and it's funny because after they play that on the Jimmy Kimmel show, you could tell Joaquin Phoenix was blindsided. But
here's the thing.
Like,
but if you remember Joaquin Phoenix,
he is a nut job.
Well, but no, if you remember Joaquin Phoenix trying to promote his film, I'm still here. Yeah. It was a whole joke in terms of trying to promote the film when he went on David Letterman's show. But apparently it's come out that was fake as well. That this video was made up and to prank Todd Phillips. Because the video, if you notice, the scene is not in the film at all. There's no shot at all from that angle. And so the whole thing was apparently planned by Jimmy Kimmel and Joaquin Phoenix to play a joke on on Todd Phillips. That's funny. Because Todd Phillips came out and was just like, I never gave that footage to anybody. I don't know what's going on, which is fantastic.
That is.
Yeah.
But so
Joaquin Phoenix is a good actor. Yeah. There's times when you think he's crazy and he's just acting.
But so that was the word I heard.
Yeah, that's possible.
I have to look into
it. It is possible.
But
I watched the clip, but I mean, that's
too,
possible.
And I agree. Yeah. I agree with you. It's like
it's
Joaquin
funny.
Phoenix pulls it off.
He does. He plays his face like what the heck?
But definitely, I would say the Joker is by far one of the best movies of this year.
Is it?
Easily go check it out. It is I think obviously, not for children, but I absolutely
Don't take your kids to see
don't
Joker.
Don't go see that.
Ugh.
But I will say, I absolutely believe that if barring any kind of controversy that the media is trying to drum up, ignore it. Go out and see this film. It's worth
good.
it
It's
for
solid.
not only being a great film, but truthfully, it's entertaining in an unsettling way.
Yeah.
Because of how great the performances are, but also the very important tone and message that it sends.
Yeah.
It is absolutely a must-see for this year.
Yeah, I
so
agree.
go check out Joker. Absolutely.
Joker.
Are y'all ready to move on to some headlines speak?
Yeah, let's
Because
go because we're just gonna
funny
keep talking
enough-
about the Joker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Joker was produced in part, oddly enough, by Martin Scorsese. Which I honestly did not know of until you mentioned it
Yes.
just before.
And I will
during
the
the review, Keith.
defend his part as producer a little bit, but even so, as much as he could say he didn't have much involvement with the movie, the fact is he still came out and blasted Marvel for saying, they're not cinema. He's like, I tried watching them, but they don't convey emotion or the human condition, and it's not cinema.
I don't see that.
Yeah,
because
I agree.
I
Well,
think there's
I
a lot
honestly-
of
that- and
character
that-
depth and human emotion.
Yes.
and
Yeah,
absolutely.
I
I
just
agree.
don't see that at all.
But it's funny because he does have a producer credit on Joker.
yeah,
Apparently, while he was filming The Irishman or what, and I think they filmed in Chicago. I think. But while he was filming, Joker was also filming there, and they used a lot of his production crew to film Joker as well because it saved on cost.
Yeah.
And apparently, he didn't really have much of a hand as producer. His assistant took on the role for Joker while he was doing Irishman, but he allowed his crew to still that way to work out. So he got that producer credit, and
So it wasn't
everybody
like
has
he
come
was
out
truly involved in the
because
making
people
of
have
Joker
have
film.
said, "Hey, wait a minute, you're blasting comic book movies, but you're a producer of comic book movies,"
Yeah.
and that was his response. Well, no,
my
it's
name's
like,
attached to it,
but
but
still,
yeah.
your name is attached to this
That's true.
film.
Yeah,
So-
but I will say this: even going back to the bigger controversy here of I think Keith, you sent a text right after this news dropped, which I love how all this juicy stuff happens after our show.
after our show.
It always happens that maybe we should just change our
And I
time.
mean, it wasn't. But I sent a text only because I love a lot of Martin Scorsese movies. I think he is a brilliant director.
Absolutely.
He has earned the awards that he's gotten. He has made many great films. But I've never been moved to near tears in a Martin Scorsese film, not because they're bad or the characters aren't. I'm not emotionally connected with.
It's not really his style.
It's not. Yeah, it's not
And
his
he's got the
type of thing.
gangster flicks.
Exactly.
I mean, The Departed, the good moments.
When everybody
but
gets
it's
shot up in The Departed, I'm not crying.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sitting there like, kill that one. I mean, it's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I mean, it's an adrenaline rush,
Yeah.
and was just funny because he says that's all Marvel is a roller coaster. It's like a theme park. It's just an adrenaline rush. But it's like, but Marvel's had moments where I've choked up, like
Teared up.
Spider-Man. Like I don't want to go. I mean, that hits you right in the heart.
yeah, no
and
doubt.
to say that doesn't touch on,
I'm sorry, but one scene immediately summed it up for me, just to defend Marvel, and it really is the final scene in their entire saga of the Infinity War or the Infinity Stone saga, and that was just honestly the very last scene of Endgame, which is Captain America with Peggy, and they're just dancing,
Yes.
slow
Yeah.
dancing.
yes,
It ending on that note, and I'm sitting here and I'm like,
that's brilliant.
that
Yep.
is that right there alone are what these movies built up to.
yeah.
And so, okay, a lot of them are popcorn flicks.
Yeah.
But there's a lot
Thor:
of
The
heart
Dark
there.
World. I agree.
Yes,
That's not
yes.
cinema. That's not cinema. You are right, Martin
Yes,
Scorsese.
yes,
That movie's
yes.
not cinema.
There are definitely gaping holes in the Marvel universe where we would say that's purely a cash grab.
But for as many
Yeah.
But-
they have that aren't that great, they have Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War.
Yes. they built
Even the
enough-
Guardians, the first Guardians of the Galaxy,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
had great emotional moments.
Well,
so,
and I'm glad you brought up Guardians because really it's like after this happened, there were a slew of people who have just come to, really
defend
Marvel,
Marvel.
defend
yeah,
Marvel, but
yeah.
honestly defend the idea of what is cinema. Because that's really the question: is
Yeah.
what
Yeah, no.
defines what cinema is. But I mean, even James Gunn coming out and saying, I went out and berated people who picketed, The Last Temptation of Christ without having seen it.
Yeah.
He said, sadly though, it's unfortunate that you won't do the same for mine.
Yeah.
That here you are judging the film before you've even seen it because he's
Yeah.
directing the remake of Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
And so yet here he is bashing a film that he's never seen. And yet it's like, yeah, now the shoe's on the other foot.
Yeah.
And I completely, and then you've got Samuel L. Jackson, who's like, oh, come on, there.
He said not everybody likes Martin Scorsese movies either.
Exactly.
And it's
Well,
true. He
Robert
said it's
Downey Jr.
subjective.
was pretty. He was pretty on the level, but he even says, like, I think I'm not going to quote him, but he's like, our movies were in theaters, so it's cinema.
Yeah.
I mean, he does. He just says it was in a theater, so
Yeah.
it's cinema.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter
And
what it is.
I've seen tweets and funny comments about like even McDonald's. It's like just because you're very successful doesn't mean you're good. And it's like I mean
Yeah.
I agree. I understand that, but I think there's something to be said for why these are so successful.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's just fanboys and fangirls going out there crying alike just to try to bring in cash for these movies.
No.
It
Yeah.
is a genuine nature of,
yeah.
of connection for these films. I think a lot of people. I think what it's done.
Those
is
characters speak to people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And honestly, I would beg and argue with Martin Scorsese. I would say, did you read comics when you were a kid? Did you have a sense of connection with them?
Yeah.
Because all it's doing
And
is
he
taking
would say, I
something.
did when I was a kid, but now I'm mature.
Yeah.
I've moved beyond those
And I would
things.
say, look at our
but-
good buddy Brad
Yeah.
next door, who had that same kind of love for comics,
Yeah.
but now has a newfound way of loving those in the same way.
In the way he drawing.
through theater and through cinema and creating such a world. I mean, that is what to me is the beautiful part about Marvel, is that they were able to take something that seems so childlike and immature and mature it in such a way that it was like, no, you can relate to these characters, and there's a lot of deep, meaningful messages within these stories
Yeah.
and within the lore that make that bring a bigger picture for people to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you can like both. That's the thing. Is people like Martin Scorsese and James Cameron and some of the others that have said, Marvel is just cinema trash or whatever. It's like it's okay to like a Martin Scorsese film. I love many of his movies, and I also love Marvel movies.
Yeah.
It's like I know that Marvel's not winning an Oscar and doesn't really deserve to. Like when Black Panther was nominated, we all joked about how that was a stunt nomination and it didn't really deserve
Right.
Best Picture.
But
No-
and that's what's funny is now, I mean, and especially for Endgame and the success it's had, they're pushing Marvel
People are
just like they did with Black
petitioning
Panther.
for Robert Downey
And
Jr.
I guess,
to win
Yeah.
an award, which he said he doesn't believe he deserves.
I was going to say exactly. I was going to bring
Yeah.
that up because Robert Downey Jr. even said himself he was petitioning. He told Disney not to petition for
Yeah.
him to get
Yeah.
a Best Actor nod, even though some would say he deserves it.
Well, it
I
just speaks
don't
to his
think
humility
so.
too, though.
Right.
I mean, that him as an actor and off screen, I feel like he's somebody that is. If he did win, it wouldn't be one of those climate change speeches. It would be a humble acceptance of his award.
Well, I
that
think
he,
too.
you
You look
know,
at his background.
Yes,
And
where he's come from,
where he's come
yes.
back from, and
Yeah.
and the fact that his career was completely tattered and torn, and for him to have this huge awakening and be one of the highest paid actors of all time, it's like, yeah, he knows a thing or two about being, down and out and
Yep.
coming back.
Yeah.
And so I think the way he was able to use that personified in a character like Iron Man for the last decade, and he kind of took a little jab at Scorsese when he was on the Howard Stern show. He was just kind of like, he's like, well, I mean, Scorsese says it's not cinema, I kind of got to think about that. I've been doing this for 10 years. It's like, you basically just said what I did didn't matter for 10 years.
Yeah. Right.
Like that's kind of a slap in the face.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think Scorsese said it in just to kind of be like, look, yes, we understand what he means by this. Those aren't cinema; they're just popcorn flicks.
Yeah.
But I think he misses the point, which is, look, no, they're not something that you're going to have to sit down and watch, or really is going to encapsulate the meaning of film 100 years from now.
Yeah.
But it's also they're not meaningless, and
They're not Transformers.
No. Yeah. I mean, one of the points of film is to be a form of entertainment.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, no matter what it is that entertains you, if that's, I mean, I just don't understand. Like, I get what he's saying about it's just an overblown budget and all the special effects and all of this kind of stuff. But I'm like, there's so many people that I know that aren't comic book fans but love these movies because they love the character. My wife doesn't read comic books. She never probably ever read a comic book in her life, but she loves some of these films. She doesn't like Guardians of the Galaxy because it's talking raccoons and stuff. But I'm like, the talking raccoon
Is awesome.
is awesome, but I mean, there's someone that can relate to that character out there.
Well, and
probably
again,
a lot of raccoons.
What you just
But no, but there's something for everybody with these movies, and people know the difference because look at Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Fantastic Four sucks.
Yes.
And the
Awful.
actors that they used did not do a good. They sucked. Some of the X-Men films sucked, and fans know it. They know the difference between good and bad films, and it's like these films, these Marvel Cinematic Universe films, have delivered the goods as far as story, performance, character depth, and the emotion, eliciting that emotion from people, and that's why people go see it, because they're responding to how good the film is. That's why some of those other movies fail.
Yeah.
And so people, for him to say this, it's almost like saying the people that like these movies are stupid and
well,
dumb,
or have poor
that they-
taste,
or
yeah.
have poor taste. And it's like,
they're
no,
deplorables.
we know, they're deplorable. We know the difference between a good movie and a bad movie.
If you like Marvel,
And-
you voted for Trump.
Damn right.
Sorry,
no,
go
Keith,
ahead,
you
Sean.
were making a point.
No,
too.
that's-
No, I was just saying what he said is spot on, because if you look at the Spider-Man movies, I mean, Spider-Man's Marvel's most well-known character.
Yeah.
You look at Sam Raimi's first two and how they were lauded, and then the third one was received poorly. The Amazing Spider-Man was so-so, and then the sequel was absolute garbage. It's like that's just the same series, same character, and you
Yeah.
already see fans that approve of some movies and hate others because it's the quality.
Yeah.
And it's like Marvel took that character, and people love
Right.
Tom Holland. They
Yeah,
love that
exactly.
character.
Yep.
So it's
Well,
like
and I mean, going back to your point about a talking raccoon,
Yeah.
it's like, no, I give credit to filmmakers using technology in such a way to make a character like that relatable.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing
And
about
sympathetic,
that's
yeah.
the breakthrough of is that they could have just done the flashiness.
Yeah.
But like you said, we've seen tons of those comic book movies that do the flashiness, and they fail when they don't have any substance.
when people
And
are sad
so-
because a giant talking tree is dying, you've
that's
made
the-
it.
Yes.
My wife and I are
Yes.
watching through all of those films right now. Since Endgame is out on Blu-ray and stuff, we've started watching them. So the last one that we just watched was Guardians 1, and I could tell that she didn't really connect the way I did, but I know that there were moments that she wouldn't maybe not even admit, but there were moments that I know, because I know my wife pretty well, and I know those moments like with Rocket and Groot where, especially when he saves all of them at the end.
We
and-
are Groot. Yeah.
yeah, and I know that had that resonated with her.
Yes.
And even though she might not start crying or whatever, but there's someone who didn't even want to see this film, and as soon as she found out it was in space, she rolls her eyes and everything. But there's still those moments
Yes.
that
Yeah.
draw someone in, so much so that I feel like when we go straight into Guardians 2, there's going to be a bit more
Well,
of a
I feel
connection
like
now.
you could almost like, for instance, like I'm glad you even brought that up. I'm thinking of Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the mind-blowing nature of Star Wars when it came out because of the special effects
Yeah.
and what it did for cinema. But it's like, if you watch that today, there are emotional moments.
Oh,
But I've had more emotional moments. And I'm talking about A New Hope.
Yeah.
I've had more emotional moments in Guardians of the Galaxy than in A New Hope. New Hope was spectacle.
Yeah.
yeah.
And
I-
for me,
I
I'm
love
sitting here and I'm
Empire's
saying, are
the
you going to
most
tell
emotional
me?
Yeah,
Are you
Star
going to
Wars
tell me
film,
those Star
but-
Wars is not cinema?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you
Are
look
you
back
serious?
at
Yeah.
the original New Hope, it's. I mean, I love it. I'm not trying to bash Star Wars.
Yeah.
But it's a fairly plain
it's
standard
an opera
movie.
in
Yeah.
space. That's what he
Exactly.
said it was.
Like,
so.
like Sean just said. I mean, you don't really get into emotion in Star Wars until an Empire, which
Empire
is like
is-
one of
The
the most
story
emotional.
expands.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're going to sit here and tell me that something like
Star
that.
Wars is not cinema. He
Yeah.
might. Martin Scorsese might say.
Well,
it.
of course he will, because he'll say, "Well, at the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
this was mind blowing." And I'm like, "So you're telling me that what Marvel
No,
was able to
'cause
do with
him
20
and
plus
Spielberg
films?"
and George Lucas are all besties, so they can't do that.
Oh well, yeah, he can't betray
Yeah.
the group. He's got to give to But no, but that's
Yeah.
the thing. You're telling me that alone, that accomplishment of making 20 plus films,
Yeah.
not only cohesive, but to continually bring in new fans and get bigger and bigger, and also create these instances throughout the entire saga that you have those
Yeah.
heartfelt moments. You're telling me that that's not an accomplishment.
You're telling
in
me
cinema?
that Indiana Jones
Come on.
4 is not cinema?
You know what?
If he's
Exactly.
besties with Spielberg and Lucas.
the truth.
Yeah.
Ain't that the truth?
Oh
though?
well, let's not give him any more time.
No, because the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is not cinema. That was the one thing
True.
we proved. That
Shia LaBeouf swinging with the monkeys though, that was legit.
Oh.
Sure. All right, guys, I think we're ready to move on to our multimedia segment.
Multimedia. Multimedia.
Heard multimedia.
I've heard.
What? You don't like my singing?
Don't
You
do that.
always ridicule me when I sing.
That's because you sound like garbage. You don't. It's,
You sound like garbage.
Okay, do we have to do what defines music?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. You are not music.
So what if I can't carry a tune?
Okay, I got to throw this out there. We didn't really have much of a huge icebreaker segment,
No, we
but
didn't.
I gotta just throw this out there because this is I think
I
it's
love
kinda
that you
funny.
waited until the multimedia
Yeah, it's a
opened to
multimedia
do
opening,
that.
but you were talking about you can't tell me what music is. When I first got to the house today, I was I had to go to the bathroom, and obviously one toilet's broken, so I had to use another one. And Brandon's connected remotely to his computer from work, and he's
Yeah.
like playing music and stuff.
Well, I was just
So-
trying to get things ready for the show today.
Right.
you know,
So when he
just getting
finds out
wrapped
I
up.
was here, he starts playing "My Heart Will Go On" while I'm in the bathroom.
Yeah.
So I told him,
Your turd will go on.
I told him, I said, in order for me to wipe and leave, I need you to play the Pirates of the Caribbean theme.
Yeah.
So he starts playing that, and it was I literally sat there on
Pretty
his toilet
epic.
It's
and
epic.
waited for him to find the right.
Well,
part
that
of
was the
the
problem.
theme.
The problem. Well,
I had
for
to
one,
find the right part.
He texted me and he was like, "After my heart will go on." Or no, it was the intro music to this. I was just checking to make sure we had
Yeah,
sound.
yeah.
And Sean's like, "Stop playing that music. I don't want to hear that." And I said, "Well, I got something better."
Right.
And so that was "My Heart Will Go On." And then he texts me and he's like, "I want to wipe and leave to Pirates of the Caribbean."
So yeah, it's like
I'm sitting there. But the thing is I didn't know exactly
It was
where
great.
the theme was.
Yeah.
There was only one track where
It's
I
like-
remembered it.
No, that's not it.
And so Sean's texting me
No,
like
that's
while I'm
not it.
trying to find it, and he's just like, "No,
That's not it.
No,
That's not it.
That's not it." And I'm
So,
just,
yeah.
I finally found it,
He
and he was
found
like,
it.
he said, "That's more
That's
like
it.
it."
That's it.
So
And I did. I wiped and I left to that music playing.
The first 3 Pirates movies were awesome.
Yeah.
I did enjoy
I'm
those.
getting ready to show those to my son.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Me and Sawyer just finished The Hobbit,
Oh.
like all 3 of them.
Yeah. You like
Ooh.
So
Ooh.
he did.
And he was-
did
yeah, he
like
did
it.
like
He
'em?
followed it somewhat closely.
'Cause
But
those are
not-
still long
He's
movies.
6 years old,
Yeah.
but we watched the extended cuts of
Oh,
all
man.
3
oh
movies.
man, you were
So
breaking
now,
him in.
now we're gonna move on to Lord of the Rings, but after that, I think I'm gonna start him on
Pirates.
the Pirates.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I like
Yeah.
the fact that you're like you're saying, look, you're gonna sit down, you're
Yeah.
gonna be entertained.
it's
You're gonna
hard.
watch
It's hard to
this.
find some of these movies that don't have a lot of cussing and stuff in them.
Yeah.
So even the Marvel movies have some language that I'm not gonna introduce him to yet.
Yeah.
But Pirates is pretty clean, and The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
I
they're
remember
clean.
being, but
Star Wars
yeah,
is clean.
he dug The Hobbit pretty good. Yeah,
Yeah.
he liked that.
Yeah, I agree.
But-
I think they're great movies. They're good lead in to Lord of
So,
the Rings.
little-
which
You
is
know
what
what
was
you
little
should,
icebreaker
you know
there.
what you I'm sorry, it's still not you know what you should be able to introduce in them, and you can't because Michael Bay stinks as Transformers.
Yeah.
That's has all kinds of terrible language and
Yeah.
jokes and stuff, and it's like, man,
Again.
this should
that
be a
and
family movie.
I don't
and-
want my
yeah.
6-year-old looking at Megan Fox's toe thumbs.
Yeah,
Ugh.
Not
she does
yet.
have toe thumbs.
Not
Ugh,
yet.
That's gross.
So what's our multimedia segment?
All I
today?
know is you're right. Transformers is not cinema.
No,
I
but the
agree.
soundtrack is awesome.
It is awesome.
Well.
Steve Jablonsky he's a great composer.
True. Okay, multimedia segment. Actually, I can't remember.
Deep
Deep fakes.
Deep fakes.
What do you do when your image pops up on a porno?
I don't know.
So what started this though was I shared a video earlier in the week. Was it today or yesterday? I think it was yesterday.
It was
And it was basically like this video of a guy. I could send you the link and maybe you could throw it up later or something.
yeah.
But it's this impressionist, and they're doing basically putting other actors' faces on his, and he's doing such a good impression that it literally looks like them and sounds like them saying different things, and it kind of brings up the question as to where can this kind of technology go someday. So I think our multimedia segment was going to be what are the ramifications or benefits of something like this. Yeah.
And we've talked in the past about.
Well, I was
like,
going to say we brought this up before because our main discussion was would we be able
Well,
to get rid of actors
you
and
see
just have
in,
like good
in
knockoffs?
Star Wars in Rogue
Yeah.
One.
Yeah.
At the end, you even see Carrie Fisher de-age, and it looks brilliant. And now she's passed on, and we've even discussed like the moral ramifications of could they bring her back?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All CGI, and now with the whole, they had a deepfake app that ended up getting, I think, banned and has since passed because people were using it for
Yeah,
they were
for
taking
the wrong
people's
ways,
pictures
yeah.
off the internet and putting them on like pornographic images and such. And it's like, what are the well?
Because if this technology is available,
People are
that's
gonna
what
do
you
that.
do.
I
mean,
that's the
if
first
you
thing
can,
you do.
if you could get a picture of Scarlett Johansson and put her in a porno and make it look exactly like
I'm gonna
Scarlett
say,
Johansson,
we all know the first
Yeah.
thing you do with breakthrough technology is pornify it. Okay.
actually,
Pornify it.
they do say
can't
that
quantify it, you
porn
pornify
leads
it.
the way in a lot of technology because as soon as somebody
Yeah.
finds, it's sad. As soon as somebody discovers something, they're like, "How can I
Let's
use this
just
in a
say-
sexual way?"
Yeah.
I think we're gonna find that tape of Donald Trump in golden showers real soon.
Sure.
Okay. We
Sure.
know
It may
it's
not be
coming.
real, but
Right,
it'll
it might
exist.
not be real.
Oh, it's coming. You just
Yeah.
wait.
And that's the thing, because I mean, just like the Impressionist, you get somebody who sounds exactly like
Oh yeah.
he did, like Arnold
Yeah.
Schwarzenegger. In 100 years,
Yes, it's awesome.
in 100 years, you
Yeah.
can make a Terminator movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he's dead.
Or
I mean, he's
you
not
can
even
make
alive.
like we've already brought up. You can make something that's completely defaming the person. Absolutely.
Oh,
good,
yeah.
Inflammatory.
I mean,
remarks
think how
made,
many people
and
run
make
for
it-
politics, and you can make a
That's
fake
exactly
video.
what's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I mean that's the scary
new
nature.
video of Trump
is-
harassing 80 women.
Yeah. Well, but again,
that
it's like
probably
tiny
really
hands.
happened. That really happened.
Exactly.
It did happen, but they didn't have evidence.
We've got
until
Michael-
now.
we've
Now
got
they have
footage of
evidence.
Michael Jackson actually molesting a child.
Genuinely fake made
It's
up
coming.
evidence.
You
Yeah.
just wait.
Genuinely fake evidence. It's like, it's real, okay?
It was done so well that we
Yeah.
can add it into evidence. I mean, but that's the scary nature of this. Is I do think
Someone could
anytime-
rob a bank and make it look like you did it
I know,
with
but
deep
that,
fake technology.
but
They'll turn it
the
into the
thing is,
police.
I think what we're really facing. I know,
Like,
obviously.
they can't do it to their face when they actually go into the bank. It
No,
would
they
only
wear a
work on the
mask,
cameras.
and then they
Oh,
get
like
the
an
foot.
LED mask
Just what you do is like you do like an Italian job and you steal the footage and replace it with footage
with
of Brandon.
fake footage.
Yeah,
of
you gotta be real in
Brandon.
depth. I'm gonna make a movie about this now.
This is great.
Actually,
gonna call-
this is a
it's gonna
fantastic.
call-
It's going to be
sci-fi
called
movie.
Deep Fake.
yeah.
That's what it's going to be called.
It's literally
That's
gonna
the
t-
porno.
It'll be
Deep Fake.
It'll just be the
porno.
sequel to
Except it's not going to say fake. It's going to say something else. Oh, that's
No,
bad.
I think it's gonna be Face Off 2. Okay.
Yes.
And it'll be literally
Oh
my
goodness.
Nicolas Cage will
Nicolas
come
Cage
back.
and John
Oh,
Travolta.
No,
yes.
they'll be dead, but they're still gonna be in the movie.
Yes.
That's
have
what we
to
do.
make this movie 30 years from now. when they're dead.
Oh.
Nicolas Cage is never going to die. I'm just...
No.
I don't
just
think wonder if he's ever gonna be in
immortal.
a good movie
When
again.
this technology came about, he was the first person we scanned.
Yeah.
I mean, him
Yeah.
and James Vanderbeek. They're
Oh,
not dying.
yeah.
But no, I think the scary thing about this is like any technology, when it first comes on the market, it's obviously nefarious.
Yeah.
And people find nefarious
Well,
ways to use it.
It
But
in and of itself
it
isn't
is.
nefarious.
Right, no,
It's how,
but, right.
how
it's
people
how
decide
people
to
use it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing is how are we going to utilize this kind of technology for, something good? And can we? Is that, I mean, is
Yeah.
it for preservation?
See, that's one of the things that I struggle with is especially if we're talking about in film, like with bringing de-aging Carrie Fisher. Now, obviously, she hadn't passed then.
Yeah.
But now that she's, dead, in a future Star Wars film or something like that, if they ever wanted to bring her back, what does that do to someone's legacy? If they're if they're never dead, then they don't have a legacy.
Yeah.
Your legacy is what's left
True.
after you're gone.
I mean, it was
So to me, it's just kind of like, one of my favorite actors is Charlton Heston, and I'm just like, the fact that he's gone is what makes his acting career so amazing. Is that this is something he left behind.
That's
He
what makes
left
it
behind
special, yeah.
Ben-Hur. He left behind the Ten Commandments. He left behind the
Planet of
Omega
the
Man.
Apes.
You're
and
literally
Planet of
going to
the Apes.
have BDF and ADF before deep fake and
And
after
after
deep
deepfake.
fake.
But I'm just like, when someone's gone, I don't want to see their likeness again in
Right.
in a film. I want to just leave them
I
them in our memories.
I agree.
And so I don't see when
to
there
me,
is
I
a
don't
good
know. I
moment
feel like
for
it's in a weird way. I don't know why I associate it with this. I kind of see it as like an organ donation, where
Wow.
you could say, "Yeah, I."
they tell their estate, when I die, it's okay if somebody uses my likeness.
likeness.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I
I
could
mean,
see that. I could see that becoming a
Well,
especially
I mean, Robin
for
Williams
actors.
said when he said, I don't want anybody to ever use my any of his voice acting and stuff,
Right.
didn't he? Yeah, he said, I don't want
For,
anybody to
I
ever
think it's
he-
for like 20 years. They
Yeah,
can't. They
But
can't
he did
touch
the
any of that.
opposite. He did the opposite. He was like, I don't want my unused material
Yeah.
to be made to
To be exploited.
to
yeah.
be exploited
Yeah.
and on the surface. He's like, I want it to. Prince almost did the same thing.
Yeah.
There's so much unveiled
Well, I
or
mean,
music that's
Yeah.
they do that.
locked
They've
away.
done it with Michael Jackson. They've done it with Elvis Presley, and just like you said, Prince almost blocked it. There's so much material that they scrapped because it just was incomplete
And to
or
be
not.
honest, I gotta be. I mean, here's the thing. There's so many things that are it could be. We've seen how this could be taken way too far and done horrible things with. But I'm looking forward to the days where it's like you go to a museum exhibit or you go to somewhere where they're honoring somebody and you see something done respectfully, like something in the likeness of somebody. And if you can do it in such a moving way, I think that would be. I don't know. I can't think of anything right off the top
It'd be
of my
like
head.
Jurassic Park,
but-
where you sit down and like John Hammond's like on the
Yes,
screen, and it's
yes.
but it's Charlton Heston. It's
Yes.
like
Right. And it's like exactly. I think there will be this way of preserving somebody's identity by not banking. I mean, of course it'll be.
It'll be banked on.
Yeah,
of
it'll
course,
definitely
but-
be banked on.
could
You know,
see
one of
that
the things I
going-
was just, I don't know what made me think of it, but like when we went to D.C., they had Judy Garland's slippers from The Wizard of Oz in a
Yes.
museum. And I was just thinking how cool it would be to have like a projected image of Judy Garland
Yeah.
telling the story of how these slippers got split
Yes.
apart and that kind of stuff. And if
That
they
would be
did
kinda
that, if they
cool.
use this kind of technology to bring her likeness back to look
Right.
at you in the face and tell you a story,
Yeah.
that'd be kind of cool. But
especially something like back then where
Yeah.
those memories and those thoughts were not even on the surface of being
Right.
preserved. They
Right.
weren't even thought of to be preserved.
I was thinking along the same thread, but instead of cinema-wise, I was just thinking just pure history. I mean, what if you go into a historic museum and you
Exactly.
have like Abraham Lincoln or the likeness of one of the founding fathers discussing whatever? I was like,
Yeah.
that'd be creepy, but kind of
Yeah.
cool.
I was
problem
gonna
is
say,
we don't have any like
Vocal.
audio or
You don't know what they
anything of
sound
Abraham
like.
Lincoln. We just
You know-
have people making stuff up.
So we know what he looks like, but you
Yeah.
don't know what they actually sounded like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but again, I mean, with I think historical evidence or I mean that's the whole beauty of people who preserve those things is they can try to find as much evidence that would relate to their likeness as much as possible
Yeah.
to give you that believability. And at least that would be the other weird thing is at what point would acting become something where it's not so
Your-
much.
your
I thought of
wheels are
something.
turning.
I thought of something
Oh,
awful.
I was
there we
thinking.
go.
I was thinking of
was-
Oswald being like, "I didn't do it. I didn't shoot Kennedy."
Mine was worse than that.
What is it?
I was like, you go to a Holocaust museum
Oh,
and there's
I
Adolf
knew it.
Hitler.
I knew it.
I was like,
I
that'd
was
be
thinking
terrible.
Hitler.
It's
I
like
was
Hitler
thinking-
sitting there
Yeah.
talking about
I figured
the
you
Third
were
Reich.
Yeah, and you can throw stuff at him.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah,
Now, actually, that would
That'd
be
be pretty
kind of cool.
cool.
Yeah.
That would be worth
you can
it.
stand there and pick up a gun and shoot him. I
Yeah.
think that would be great.
No, that's violence. Guns are evil.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that.
Justice. No, I honestly,
Justice.
but that's the thing. I think, to actually, be able to use it for that purpose, I think would be a great, way to use this
It's a cool way
technology.
to help people learn and kind of connect with the past, which is something I really think people desperately need because
People don't know history.
they don't.
anymore.
Yeah,
Not
you've
the
got a
real
way for them
history.
to connect to that. That
Let's
would be
just
awesome.
say, I'll know my history better when deepfake videos are, made on it. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you have, and that's the funny thing is, then you'll have movies like Tarantino.
Yeah.
Where it's like you don't know what reality is. It's like, oh yeah, I know exactly what happened with the Manson murders.
Right.
It's like, okay.
Brad Pitt happened.
A can of dog food. But no, I think it's definitely troubling right now. But I hope that, for the sake of humanity, somebody gets their hands on it that deserve to use it the right way.
Yeah.
But that is with anything. It's always with great power comes great responsibility.
my
I
Had
had
to do it.
to.
You had to
I
do it.
had to.
Oh, that
throw
was
out.
that was a comic book movie that left a mark on you.
Yeah.
Oh, it sure did.
Yeah.
Huh.
Didn't you quote Spider-Man last week too?
He did.
You
Did I?
did.
You quoted Stan Lee's. I guess
Oh,
one man
yes,
can
yes,
make a
yes,
difference.
Yeah, I did. Well,
Yeah.
that was in honor of Stan Lee.
Yeah.
You know, that was
Okay.
for him.
Oh,
So
you
was
know.
there? Yeah, it was
We'll
Spider-Man.
bring him back.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
For all the Marvel cameos.
Yeah.
So he can tell Martin Scorsese, you okay?
Yeah,
That's what he'll
let's
do.
take Martin Scorsese to Stan Lee's grave and be like, stand here by Stan Lee's grave and tell that man that his work is
Yeah,
cinema."
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right, guys. I think that's gonna do it for our episode.
Is it going to
Should-
do it?
Wrap it up.
Should we?
Are we doing it? Is it it? Is that
I
it?
think that's it.
I
Should-
think I'm ready to quit.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, should we just? Are we done?
Yeah.
Should we just leave?
Well, what if somebody wants to contact us?
Oh, Sean's done. No.
Sean,
how would they do that?
if
Are
somebody
you asking me?
if somebody wanted to say like email us and be like, oh, we love the Joker or we hate Joker, it incites evil. Well, how would they do that?
They would do that at RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com.
It's funny you say that because I can see that like right in the bottom of the screen. like,
bottom
right
of the
there.
screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like,
RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com.
Right there.
huh?
We're lonely. Please,
Please
send us an
email
email.
us.
Message us. Let us know. Maybe you agree with
Yeah.
Martin. Maybe
Yeah.
you say Marty's right.
Marty.
Yes.
Old Marty.
Old Marty.
Old
Crazy
Marty.
kooky Marty.
You know, Crazy Marty. What'd he make? Wolf of Wall
I
Street.
will say,
That's
Hugo-
no end game.
Hugo was a
I
good
know it.
movie. That,
Hugo
that
is
was,
awesome.
That was a
Hugo?
good movie.
Yeah.
I do love Hugo.
That's a
He's
great
got
movie.
great movies. He
Yeah.
does. Like I love many of his movies.
Yeah. It's
I
like
don't-
how is throwing midgets at a dartboard cinema?
Are you
pretty
kidding me?
good.
That's kind of the best cinema you can have.
Cinema gold.
All right, guys.
Okay.
I think that's going to do it. But yes, please email us at rmpodcast@redmoonproductions.com. Until next time, I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
and
Keith Cheatham.
so until next time, we will
See you at the movies.
You
We
throw
got
me. No, we
him.
didn't.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.